Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Psychology Talk. The session is due to just begin momentarily. Thank you ever so much for being here today. We apologise for a slightly delayed start, but we have everyone ready with you now and we're ready to deliver. I'm going to be handing over today to my colleagues within the Psychology Department here at Aston. And first of all, this morning you're going to be hearing from Nathan. He'll be taking you through the talk. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone. Just to make you aware that the session is going to be recorded. All the questions that are asked in the Q&A on your screen will be answered at the end of the session. If you would like to ask a private question, please include private at the end of your message and we will ensure that that isn't posted. Nathan, as you move on to the next slide, if it's possible to just unmute your microphone and then we can begin the session.
Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Nathan Rideout. Welcome to Aston. So today we're going to give, I'm going to give you a talk about a brief discussion about psychology, and then I'm going to talk specifically about what is distinctive about psychology at Aston. I'm going to talk a little bit about our placement year, which is one of the sort of central elements of the Aston degree, giving you an opportunity to get real life experience during your degree. Then later on, you're going to get an opportunity to meet with some current students, and then we're going to have a practical demonstration with Dr. Ed Walford, who's going to give you a demonstration of an experiment. And then finally, we're going to have a question and answer session with myself and other members of the staff and the students to give you a full idea of what it's like to study psychology at Aston University. So to begin with, what I'd like you to do is to think about what do you think we mean by psychology? So what is it that you think you're going to be studying, and what is it you think, what subjects do you think that we're going to be covering? So what you can do is post your responses into the chat, and then we'll, after a minute or so, I will have a look at those and we'll be able to discuss what we mean by psychology. So have a think, what is psychology and what subjects do you think you're going to cover during the time that you're studying at Aston University? So when we ask the question of what are we going to study in psychology, then the answer is a very broad range of topics, which is from right across the broad spectrum. So we're interested in how the brain is constructed and how the neurons communicate with each other. We're interested in brain structure and function, in developmental psychology, in learning and how we understand learning, interpersonal communication. We'll also be looking at psychological disorders and then trying to understand those. We'll be looking at group processes, interpersonal conflict, etc. But probably an easy way to remember this is I like to think of from the neuron to society and everything in between. So psychology is a very broad subject with lots of very interesting areas of study. It's primarily described as the science of understanding behavior and the mind. And within the mind, we talk about the brain being the seat of that mind. So we'll understand the brain, understand how it functions and how it communicates, and then understand lots of different topics within that area. Okay. So the next thing I want to move on to is say why, what is it that you can do if you study with a psychology degree? So normally when I do the study, when I do the talk face to face, this is a bit easier. I can ask people if anyone in the room is thinking that they would like to be a clinical psychologist, because you can guarantee in a group of psychology students that there are lots who want to be clinical psychologists. So clinical psychologist is effectively the psychological equivalent of a psychiatrist. So a psychiatrist is a medic who's trained in psychiatric medicine, and they treat things like depression, anxiety, eating disorders using medicine and biological treatments. So a clinical psychologist works in a similar team, and they use psychological medicine to treat these disorders. And these tend to work within the NHS and work in teams with psychiatrists and that to treat these disorders. Other professional psychologist titles include occupational psychologists who work in business, understanding groups, understanding work processes, how to improve people's ability to work together in teams. You don't have to be a clinical psychologist, and you don't have to be unwell to benefit from psychological processes. So almost every professional sports team has their own psychologist on board. You can train to be a counselling psychologist, so life coach, that type of thing. You can set yourself up and be able to use your psychological knowledge to help people to, improve their life in many ways. Educational psychologists work in schools and can be either helping people who have special educational needs, but also to help people to be able to function well in school and to do the best they can in school. Forensic psychology, what this isn't is like the old style cracker, wiring the blood, etc. Forensic psychologists do work in prisons, trying to rehabilitate individuals, but also trying to help them to cope with the situation and things like this. Occasionally, you do get forensic psychologists who work with the police to do things like profiling, but the forensic psychologist generally is working with offenders and also working with young people to try and stop them from offending. We have a very strong health psychology team here at Aston. So health psychology developed from the notion that the NHS was developed to the idea of keeping their workforce healthy so they can be more productive. But often by the time you come into contact with the NHS, things have already happened. You might have had a heart attack or a stroke, which case that's not very helpful. So health psychology is about preventing or understanding things like how can we eat better, how can we not smoke, how can we reduce our drinking, how can we do more exercise. So those people who are interested in this, we also have a master's here in health psychology, which you could go on to take. Neuropsychologists, a very interesting group. These are brain and behaviour specialists. So primarily a neuropsychologist might assess you if you've had a stroke or an injury to your brain to try and work out what areas have been damaged and what areas are still intact, and to work out how to work around any problems you're having. And of course, all of these guys what they do is based on what the rest of us do. So that's teaching the new psychologists like yourself and doing the research on which a lot of these people are based. If you're interested, from these slides, we have some videos which we've created which talk about these different ways of these different professions in psychology. However, it's important to also think about that many people who go on have a psychology degree actually go on to careers outside of psychology. And one of the key things really is that there are lots of opportunities, both public and private sector, which have an emphasis on understanding people and their communication. And one of the things that we're very proud of is that psychology graduates have a wide range of capabilities. At its basis, psychology is scientific, so we use the scientific method. We teach you how to be scientific in your approach. We use statistics and we use numbers, so you need to be numerate, and we will train you in statistical analysis. But you also need to be literate. So often what we're asking you to do is to go and read around an area, to synthesize the material that you find, and to make a coherent argument. And all of these skills are very, very useful for lots of different careers. And basically, you're going to be developing good communication skills, numerical reasoning. We'll be doing lots of computer work, information finding and organization, lots of teamwork. We'll give you problems to solve. Primarily, if there's one thing that psychology develops, it's critical thinking and your independence of thought. So we really, really focus on that in your degree. Okay, so that's why you might want to study psychology. So now let's look more specifically about what's distinctive about Aston. Okay, so why choose Aston? Well, those of you who choose to do single honours, we give you great opportunities during your final year to specialise. Because you cover the core material that the BPS require in your early years, it means that when you get to your final year, you have much more opportunities for which to specialise in different areas. So we have each member of staff does a module in their area of expertise. So we have many clinical and health modules, modules about autism, about psychosis, modules about business, modules about forensic psychology and things like this. And so you can, in single honours, you can choose these options in your final year. Obviously, those of you who are doing joint honours, you cover the core across second and final year, so you don't get the options in psychology in final year. But where you get is a breadth, because you get 2 subjects that you're taking to final year and 2 degree levels. So you're getting the opportunities to have, you know, a wide range of opportunities in that way. Everybody does a final year project, and in that final year project you have a lot of choice, and therefore that's where you get some specialism for those of you doing joint honours. And there are options in your other course that you will get, but for the psychology, because you've got a psychology program that's accredited, you have to do the core psychology. Okay, so we are very, very strong on support, personal development and employability. So this is embedded within your course. So as you go along, there'll be opportunities for you to volunteer and get, as well as doing your placement, get mentoring experience and experience working, you know, in lots of different fields. We give you training in sort of writing CVs and letters and things like this, and thinking about your career and helping you to develop the skills and recognise when you're developing the skills. And this really builds up to the placement year. So those of you doing joint honours, it's a compulsory placement. Those of you who are doing single honours, we strongly recommend that you do a placement, and we will support you to do so. Those of you who've signed up for the 3-year programme, this is not a problem. You can change at any point, including when you're here, up until the end of your 2nd year. So, you know, we do encourage you to do it, and you will get lots more information about that when you come here. Other things that you probably would like to know is that we're very strong on research. So we're top 10 in the research quality according to the Computer University Guide, in top 40 overall. Our teaching is rated as gold in the Teaching Excellence Framework, and 90% of our students in a very recent National Student Survey reported that our courses were intellectually stimulating. So you can see that our teaching is a high quality as well as our research. Okay, so what we have here at Aston is courses. We have single honours psychology, which you can either take as a 3-year course without a placement or 4-year with a placement. And then the joint honours courses of psychology and business, psychology and marketing, and psychology and sociology. So the important points here are that all of our courses are accredited by the BPS and confer graduate basis of registration. And this is vital if you want to go and have a career as a professional psychologist. So if you want to go and train as a clinical psychologist, as a health psychologist, as a occupational psychologist, educational psychologist, forensic psychologist, etc., then you need to have a BPS accredited degree. So all of ours are. So it doesn't matter which of our degrees you do, they are all accredited by the BPS. The other thing that's worth noting is that we are, as far as we're aware, the only psychology and business course that is dual accredited by the British Psychological Society, the BPS, and the Chartered Institute for Personnel, so the CIPD. So this is a great opportunity for those of you who are thinking already, yes, I definitely want to work in business, and in sort of human resource management is where I see myself working, then this is absolutely the ideal degree for you. As I say, when we our approach at Aston is very practical and interactive. So we have dedicated undergraduate labs, and one of the members of staff who's with us today is involved in teaching these, and the other one is involved in kind of organising these laboratories so that you get lots of information about those if you're interested. Within the laboratories, we have small labs for testing. We have focus group and observation rooms. We have a dense array EEG system that's enabled you to record electrical activity in the brain. We have more simple electrical systems for measuring EEG and EOG. And hopefully during your time at Aston, you will get an opportunity to use these systems in practicals, and also when you go forward in your final year, you can choose to use these in your final year project. And our labs are supported by 2 full-time technicians who are situated in there, and they're there to help you to develop your work and your research. So during your first 2 years, you'll be taking part in experiments. So you'll be going to the labs and taking part in experiments of staff and other students. And then as you progress into your final year, then you'll be going there yourself to do your research in those areas. As I say, we are very strong in research, but we also use our research to enhance our teaching. So our Director of Undergraduate Studies, Dr. Rob Nash, has given a TED talk on his research on false memories, and he brings in his research on sort of understanding feedback and understanding sort of memory into his teaching. We have a very strong eating group here, and they have produced an app that's very, very popular for children. So it's basically as a dual thing. It's like maths, but it's also to try and encourage children to interact with vegetables. And so again, what you can see is that the teaching that you'll get is based on cutting edge research, so the up to the date research. Aston has very strong neuroscience facilities here. The Aston Neuroscience Institute, the Aston Brain Centre, we have all of our neuroimaging technology here. Many of our staff work within that area. And so the research that's being done and in the brain, this cutting edge research, is also brought into the teaching that we do with you. And as you can see, we're rated in the top 10 for our teaching quality and our research quality. So you can see that we are very strong on both teaching and research. And we use our research to guide our teaching. So you're getting the sort of cutting edge research in the teaching that we do. We're also strong in our student support. So you'll see there will be a team of people supporting you through your journey. Everybody is allocated a personal tutor. All of you, whichever degree you do, will end up with a psychology personal tutor, because you're in the psychology program. It runs all of your degrees. And so that member of staff will stay with you throughout your degree, and they have a sort of dual role. One is to be somebody that you can contact about your sort of academic journey, and they will be able to advise you on how you can improve on your academic work. But they also have a pastoral role, in which case you can go and speak to them if you're having sort of problems of any kind, and they will be able to guide you in terms of explaining where you can get help for any problems that you're having. When you go out on placement, you'll be allocated a placement tutor, and if you're in the UK, then the likelihood is they will come and visit you in place. Or unfortunately, if you go to places like Australia, that we don't get to, which is a shame. When you're in your final year, you work very closely with a member of staff, and they are your final year project supervisor, and you'll get very good relationship with those people, and you work with them very closely, and they will do one-to-one support during your final year. You can get a mentor from a higher year in first year, so you get somebody who is closer to your age and who has been through first year psychology recently, so that you can they can tell you the lessons that they've learned and give you advice on things like this. And the other thing that we're very proud of is our Aston Psychology Society. So this is a group run by students, for students, and this they put on lots of events. They have a film club, they put on social events, they bring in interesting speakers to talk about different areas of psychology and different things like this. And it's a good way of sort of building this psychology community that we have here at Aston. In addition to that, we have dedicated library staff who you will meet very early and will tell you about finding information. If you're wanting to improve your writing and your maths, then there is the Learning Development Centre, and you can go and you can make an appointment there. There are courses on particular things, but you can also just drop in and find out ways in which you can improve your writing, mathematics. We have a literary fellow who is a professional writer who is there to advise you into how to improve your writing. We have a very strong careers and placements team who, right from the beginning, will be involved in trying to encourage you to think about what careers you might want, and to try and understand where you need to go. They will also be involved in helping you to get your placements when you're trying to get your placement. And we also have an enabling team who are able to assess any sort of learning issues that you have and advise the academics how we can best support you in your learning. And so all of these support services are collected together and located centrally in the hub. So if you need if you've got counselling, you need counselling or financial advice, or housing advice or any of these things, they're all located in the same place. You can go there and they will then be able to guide you and help you and support you through your learning journey with us. And as you can see, our students tend to have very good things to say about us. So my time at Aston has pushed me beyond my boundaries, and I achieved more than I thought I could. So we're very keen on this idea of personal development and being able to make you the best you that you can be. So the placement year, this is probably the key aspect of Aston's psychology degree and many of the degrees at Aston. We've been doing placement years for the longest of any universities that do placements. It's very embedded in our sort of ethos. So you can go during your third year and do a placement related directly to your degree. So you can go and work as a clinic, forensic, educational, or working in business, and you can get opportunities of getting graduate level experience before you've actually graduated. So you will find that clinical, forensic, etc., will get face-to-face with clients. Not obviously they will be supported, and obviously they're not the first day, but you will get opportunities to sort of interact with patients, etc. Things like this. It's very, very good, and it's probably the key to our success in being able to get our graduates into employment, etc. afterwards. It's probably important to note at this point that the fees for the placement year are reduced, and there are many student bursaries that can be obtained to sort of clear the debt for that particular year altogether. We do this deliberately because we know the importance of placements, and we've done lots of work understanding how important placements are. So here are some of the recent placements, and you can see that there will be some companies that you will definitely recognise. But we also have lots of opportunities to work in, clinical psychology, forensic psychology, people working in sort of secure units and things like this, getting lots and lots of hands-on experience of, and being able to, the important bit really is to be able to apply the first 2 years of your learning to a professional situation and being able to reflect on the skills that you've already developed and the skills you need to develop going forward. So importantly, we've got a very strong record of getting our students out into graduate level employment. So in the most recent survey, we can see that 93% of our graduates were in employment or further study within 6 months of leaving Aston. And we can see places that we go, like one of the things that's very important. So if you want to be a clinical psychologist, then what you do need to be, you need a minimum normally of 2 years full-time experience before you're able to go on and train. And so that's the assistant psychology route. And what we're very good at is getting people into assistant psychology roles when they finish. Primarily what this happens is from doing the placement year, you meet relevant people and you get opportunities to then to sort of work in those areas, and you're able to connect with people, and it means that you can then go back to there or go into related post afterwards. Because obviously if somebody's looking to work as within sort of a clinical environment, that's quite challenging. So the question that the employer is going to ask is, are you going to be able to cope with this? Well, obviously if you've worked as an assistant psychologist for a year on your placement, the answer to that question is yes. And even if you then decide afterwards, because what we do find is about 50% of people who work as assistant psychologists in clinical go, yes, that's definitely for me. I'm going to be a clinical psychologist. That was absolutely brilliant. The other 50% went, oh my goodness, no way, I don't want to do that. That was very challenging. But it's really good that you learned that at that point, because, to be a clinical psychologist, you need a psychology degree, a minimum of 2 years full-time experience as an assistant psychologist, and then a 3-year doctorate in clinical psychology. It takes about 8 years in total. So it's better that you find out early whether this is for you or not, rather than then, finding out later that it really wasn't. And there are lots of opportunities like that. So lots of different opportunities, but nothing is wasted, because obviously the experience you gain here tells you a lot about yourself, and you can always draw on that experience going forward. So you can see, where our students are going, and you can see that some of them are in medicine and in health, but there are others in marketing, in business, in the police, as science teachers, and lots of other areas. So you can see, just like psychology is a very wide subject, you can see that there are lots of opportunities for our students in the work environment. Okay, so here are some of our graduates and what they've done. So Yasmin was a single honour student, and she worked as an assistant psychologist at the Children's Hospital, and she's now doing a trainee psychology wellbeing practitioner. I remember Ashley very well, actually. Ashley, again, a single honour student. He was an assistant to a charity director in his placement, but he is now training to be a policeman, so he's working within the police on their graduate training scheme. We can see here's Hannah. Hannah was a psychology and business. She did an HR placement and is now a development advisor within in a business environment. So you can see psychology and business. She's working in business. You can see, I think Ziba is really interesting. So she did psychology and sociology. She worked on a placement as a recruitment officer, but then upon graduating, she then took a change and is now working as a prison officer or training as a prison officer. So you can see that wherever you go in your placement and your degree doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly where you're going to end up. You can see that there are lots of different opportunities going forward that you can use your psychology degree for, and that's very useful. So Christina, another psychology and sociology student, so she did recruitment admin as in her placement, but is now a mental health support worker. So you can see again, she did sociology and psychology, but she's gone forward and done more sort of clinical work. And Amrita is so she, from graduating, she worked as a research assistant during her placement, and then she did the MSc in cognitive neuroscience with us at Aston, and she's now doing a PhD here at Aston. So you can you can see that she's taken the research as being the thing that she really wants to do, and she's really going with it. She trained her masters, so she's got skills now in neuroimaging, which she's now applying in a PhD. So, okay, so one of the things, and we're going to send this out, this particular list out to students as an email coming up soon. So these are just recommendations of how you can spark your enthusiasm for psychology by reading some very interesting work. In particular, actually it's not on that list, which is typical. One of our members of staff has written a book basically debunking the myths that there are differences, meaningful differences between male and female brains, and so that's highly recommended. Again, that's definitely going to be on the list that we're sending out to you. So you know, it's a good idea to start thinking about psychology, and some of these books will really, and papers, etc., will really get you thinking about the topics that we're going to cover and stuff like this. So hopefully, you know, when you come to us, you'll be really inspired to engage with psychology as an amazing subject that it is. Okay, so here are some of the teams. So that's me. I'm the person speaking. That's Nathan. I'm the senior lecturer, and I'm also admissions tutor. Ed is going to do an experiment with you later. He's a teaching fellow with us and does a lot of the labs in first and second year. Dr. Andrew Schofield is a reader in psychology, and he's the deputy head of psychology, and he's here today to speak to you as well. And in addition, we also have Dr. Lou Atkinson, who is a lecturer in psychology and also involved in the health masters. And we also have Will, who is a teaching fellow, but he's also doing a PhD with us. So he's a graduate teaching fellow doing a PhD and is a teacher. You will see him in first and second year, and he will be able to tell you a bit more about what it's like to be here. And we also have two students who are going to speak to you about their experiences of psychology here at Aston. So I'm going to leave that there, and I think we're now going to speak to the students, or the students are going to speak to you. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to be around for you to speak to me and ask me questions later, okay? Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Nathan. We're just going to cross over now, as Nathan mentioned, to one of our students who's going to give us a bit of an insight. Shreya is going to talk about the course that she's currently studying and give you a bit of an insight into what it's like to study psychology at Aston.
Hello, hi everyone, I hope you're all okay. So like they said, my name's Shreya. I'm a second year psychology and business student, so I'm doing the joint honours. I've just finished my second year, so I'm currently in the process of securing my placement. I've been looking at more of a business placement, but the options are really open. You could do anything that you wanted, to be honest. I know people who have gone into psychology placements, but personally, I've been looking at business ones. So I will be doing my placement next year and then going on to my final year, graduating and hopefully entering a career in the business sector, possibly with the people that I do my placement with, which is a really good benefit of doing a placement year. It's something I would highly recommend. The Aston placement team are also really supportive. I've received a lot of support and advice on things to do with my cover letter. I've had multiple mock interviews with them. So they've just been really supportive in the process. I know it can be quite daunting and you hear a lot about how difficult it can be to find a placement. So I think that shouldn't be something that would put you off doing one. I definitely would recommend it. And having spoken to people that have graduated, they've spoken really highly of how much it benefited them once they graduated. In terms of Aston and the course, the psychology course, I really enjoyed it. It was a really you learn a really wide range of subjects. In the first year, you get a lot of support. I remember having a lot of introductory lectures and getting to meet the staff and getting a lot of opportunities to sort of engage in different things. As part of the psychology course, you have to complete a certain number of research hours as part of the research methods module, which I think is really good because it allows you to sort of see what you'll be doing in your final year when you have to do your own research project. So this really allows us to sort of experience and work with the final years and help them with their projects acting as participants, which is really nice as well. It kind of makes you think about what you might want to do when you get to your final year. And yeah, I've been involved with a few different societies and clubs as part of my time at Aston. I was involved with the Hindi Society. I also recently joined in my second year the Psychology Society. So it's been really good. The experience has been really great. I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm from Leicester, so I lived out at Aston when I was studying there. So if you have any questions about accommodation or anything about that, feel free to pop that into the Q&A and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Shreya. Now we've got a whole range of different academics, and some of which you may have just seen a picture of, that's working behind the scenes today to be able to provide answers to all the questions that you might have. What we're going to do now is we're going to work through a few of those questions that have been asked in the Q&A, and we'll hopefully be able to provide some answers for you. Okay, so we'll start off with one of the most commonly asked questions, which is based around, in particular, how the course is assessed, whether that is essay-based, and what are the different types of teaching and assessment types in the BSc Psychology. Can I ask for one of our academics to just pop up and speak about how that's done? Thank you.
I can definitely do that. Can you see me? Yeah. So Aston, what we try to do is to use a wide range of assessment techniques to try and allow students to show their skills and to meet the learning outcomes in lots of different ways. So there will be, you will write essays and lab reports. There are exams. Employers want us to have exams, so there will be examinations, but there will also be opportunities for group work. We do presentations, both initially in early years, we do group presentations, and later on, as you go towards your final years, you get to do individual presentations on topics. There will be posters that you get to produce. So we do lots and lots of different ways in which you can demonstrate your skills. Many of the modules, particularly early on, have built-in sort of test yourself quizzes that you do as you go along. Most of the time they give you some small amounts of grades as you're going along, so you can find out how you're doing, but also gain sort of credit towards your degree as you're going along through each week. So that can be kind of helpful for you to see how you're learning. So I hope that answers that question. Lots of different assessment ways.
Brilliant, thank you, Nathan. One of the other questions that we are getting coming through is based around employability and career options after undertaking a psychology degree. I know you covered this partially in the presentation. Can I have a volunteer of another academic to just cover what options there are?
Again, I can take this. We do. I am, as well as being the admissions tutor, I'm also the first year tutor. So we embed within our program a sort of careers element is within all the modules as you go, with some of the modules as you go along. So as I say, you can, with a BPS accredited degree, you can go forward and train as any of the professional titles. All of them, you can't work as a professional psychologist with just an undergraduate degree. You have to go and do further training. But to be able to do that training and be able to have and use those titles, you have to have a BPS accredited degree and then do the training. But as I say, there are lots of opportunities to work outside of psychology. In fact, the majority of students who study psychology do go and work outside of the field. So you can, we have people working in business, in marketing, we have people working in, lots of people go on and work in education, either as educational psychologists, but also go forward and train. We have some people who've trained as primary school teachers, but there is now a route where you can train as a secondary psychology teacher. So where you're teaching psychology as a specialism, and you can go and do that in secondary schools or in FE. There are lots of opportunities, market research, lots of opportunities working is anything where there's kind of an understanding of people and trying to make sense of the world and make sense of sort of how people behave and understand how people behave. Then one of the things you can see, so you had with the COVID response, you've had a team of medics who've been involved in kind of the medical response to COVID, but there was a team that was added to that, which included some psychologists whose role was trying to understand how to get across the message to people how they should be behaving. So the idea of wearing masks, about social distancing, about this and the other, all of that came from that. The advice that was given comes from psychologists. So you can see that there are lots of opportunities for you to go and work in the future in different areas. I hope that answers that question. Any other?
Fabulous. A really quick one, just based around class sizes. What's your average class size?
So again, there'll be under normal circumstances, of course, you would normally have in your you would have sort of lectures where you have either the whole cohort or a sizable amount of the cohort. But alongside that, we have smaller group sessions. So we have tutorials where there'll be 10 to 12 people working with a tutor, and then they will also have labs where there'll be smaller groups, again, maybe 20, 30 people working with a number of members of staff. So there will be lots of opportunities. So what the things we've been working hard on over the summer is the idea of what are known as flipped classrooms. So this is so we're going to provide the material early on as the lectures in sort of packets, recorded packets, and give opportunities to use the face-to-face teaching in smaller groups. And that's either going to be face-to-face or using online things like Teams, like we're doing at the moment. So we've already thought a lot about this. Obviously, what we're hoping is soon we'll be able to revert back to more of the face-to-face teaching, whilst still using what is good about this. So, the opportunities, for example, of using flipped classrooms, it means that students can study when they want. They can get access to the lectures at any time, not just at the time that the lecture is running. So that's kind of an advantage of that. So the class sizes vary, but there will be lots of opportunities. And as you go forward, so in the final year, you'll be working one-to-one with a member of staff. So your final year project is done with one member of staff, and you work with them, on a weekly basis doing work. So and that's kind of the way we aim. Okay.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got lots of really brilliant questions that are still coming in. Like I say, we've got lots of our brilliant psychology team working behind the scenes to get those answered for you. We're going to pass over now to Ed, who's going to lead our interactive experiment this morning. So Ed, whenever you're ready, we'll pass over to you and we'll take part. Thank you very much, Nathan. That's really helpful.
Okay, fantastic. So we're on. Hello, everybody. That's I can't really see. It's a very, very strange thing, but there you go. So I'm Ed Wolford, and as Nathan said, I'm a teaching fellow here. So I do a lot of stuff around labs and support for students who are doing labs in the first and second year. Lots of support sessions for students in the final year to help them with their final year project studies, which is really, really important. Anyway, we'll get on with it. It'd be a bit rubbish if we did a psychology open day without any actual psychology in it. So we're just going to do a little experiment. And you can play along as much or as little as you want. And it's all going to be about memory. So hold on. I've got to share the screen, haven't I? That would help. That's better. Okay. So just a few details to tell you about what's going to happen. We do have ethics in psychology, and you need to be able to make an informed decision about whether to participate. So I'm just going to present you with some words via a PowerPoint presentation. I'd like to try and remember those words, and as each word is presented, I'll just read them out for you. And afterwards, we'll see if you can recognise which words were presented amongst other words that you hadn't seen before in that first list.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ed. If you are ready to share your screen now, it's not showing up for us just yet.
Oh, isn't it?
No, don't worry, but if you just share it now.
Hold on. Is it working now?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, good, good. Okay. So.
No, oh, sorry, Ed, not quite yet. Nathan, if you can just stop sharing your screen, I think that might be what's stopping us.
Is that better?
Yeah, there we go.
Yay! Good, good, good. Best laid plans and all. But anyway, so, okay, so the words are going to come up here. I'll read them out, and it's very, very simple. Just try and remember these words. Okay, so here we go. So, wake is the first word. Then we have ice, snow, weather, dream, snooze, tired, slumber, awake, doze, hot, blanket, frigid, chilly, heat, wet, bed, winter, rest, warm. Okay, that's it for now. So try those words. I'll show you some more words and ask you if they were in that list that you've just seen or not. In the meantime, this is what we call in the trade a distractor task. To stop you sitting there thinking about those words in the meantime, we'll chat about some practical work at Aston. So in the first few years, you get quite a lot. So first year single and joint honours students will do a range of practical work, and some of it will be qualitative. As you may or may not be aware, psychology is quite a broad church, and a focus group practical, which is focusing on a conversation about a topic, transcribing the words that people use and trying picking out themes and working out what the most important parts are. So there could be a question: is what does it feel like to be a first year psychology student? And you might be able to pick out some different words like terrifying or exciting and so on. Second term, we do some EEG, and that's electroencephalography, and it's essentially you're going to be able to measure the brain activity of other people doing that. There's quite a lot of technical bits to that. It's probably more difficult than you think at first, particularly just something simple like putting electrodes on. And we also do some work around experimental psychology, where you get to program some software to present stimuli, different kinds of stimuli, and record responses and reaction times, things like that. So you get quite a lot in the first year. You also, in both years, are, as Shreya said, that you have to participate in other people's studies as well as part of the requirements. So you might be doing studies for final year project students, PhD students, graduate teaching assistants, or indeed staff. Okay, in the second year, if you're single honours, you do an EEG experiment in the brain and behaviour module. So we take the basic EEG techniques and we do a full experiment, which is based on essentially some of the research that my colleagues have been doing. And for also students, you get to design a survey questionnaire using a piece of software called Qualtrics, which means that you can then publish those on the internet. And we also have a piece of experimental software that allows something similar. Okay, so you get to do quite a lot of practical work, get your hands dirty, quite literally in the case of EEG, because all the cream you have to use. So plenty to do. Okay. Plus, you have to do research, as I said, and that gives you the chance to participate in studies with lots of different methodologies. And it also informs you about research, how it's done, and can help inform final year projects. And the final year project is also such a big part of what determines your final degree grade. So really, we're focusing in the first few years on giving people the tools that they will be able to use to complete a successful final year project. And I hope that's kind of clear enough. And we do want to give students as much experience of research as we can, both as researchers in their final year and as participants in their first 2 years. Okay, so that was my distractor task out of the way. So how well do you think you'll be able to remember the words from the first list I showed you earlier? So if I showed you a list of words now, some of which you'd seen in the first list and some of which you hadn't, would you be able to tell which words were on the previous list and which weren't? Okay, you don't have to play along, but if you think you saw a word earlier, Chloe is going to be typing the words into the Q&A, and all you have to do is like the word in the QA as I read it out, and Chloe types them into that Q&A. Are we ready with that, Chloe? Yes?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, good. Okay, so hopefully everybody understands the rules of the game. If you saw the word before, like it on the QA, and Chloe will give us some feedback on that. If you thought you didn't see the word, just don't do anything. Okay, so here's some more words. Okay, so I'll read them out and give people time to respond. So did we see the word warm in the first list? Okay, how are we getting on, Chloe?
The likes are coming in, Ed. We're around 8, 9, 10, 11.
Lots of likes for warm. Okay, that's good because it was on the first list. Very, very good. Okay, so what about mug?
People are more sceptical of that one. No likes so far.
Yeah, which is perfectly correct. Okay, so a little bit of feedback there. No, it wasn't. Now, the next words, I'm not going to give you feedback. So here we go. Did you see the word bed?
So far, 5 people think they saw the word bed.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. Any more?
Creeping up a little bit. We're on 10 now. Still 25 for warm is our biggest at the moment.
Yeah, but you know yeah. Okay, so bed's a popular one. So yeah. Okay, so how about butter? Is anybody admitting to having seen the word butter before?
No likes so far.
Nobody likes butter. Oh, never mind. Okay, so maybe they'll just like margarine. There you go. Okay, so next one is sleep. So did anybody see the word sleep on that first list?
Oh, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, so it's
7.
creeping up.
Creeping up, yeah. 10.
So we can say that's probably a positive. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a few more now.
Yeah, we're up to
Okay.
11.
Okay. So let's get on to the last word on our list. Okay. Did we see the word cold in that first list?
Slowly rising. So to give you an overview so far, Ed, 27 thought they saw warm, 1 thought they saw mug, 25 thought they saw bed, none of them thought they saw butter, 17 saw sleep, and so far 12 thought they saw cold.
Okay. Well, that's interesting, actually, because that's pretty much what we'd expect. Yeah. The thing that you probably aren't expecting, and lots of people do say that they'd seen the words cold and sleep on that first list. Okay. Now, they weren't on the list at all. However, there are some words here that trying to get a mouse pointer. So we had hot, snow, warm, winter, ice, wet, frigid, chilly, heat, weather. We also had bed, rest, awake, tired, dream, wake, snooze, blanket, doze, and slumber. Question is, why do so many people think they'd seen cold or sleep on the first list? Certainly people were very accurate in rejecting the other words like butter that they hadn't seen at all, and mug. Gives you a clue. We got the words from Stadler et al.'s paper, which is called Norms for Word Lists That Create False Memories. Okay, so it's all about association. So hot, snow, warm, winter, ice, and so on are all related in meaning or semantically related to the word cold. And similarly, bed, rest, awake, tired, and so on are all related to the word sleep. Now, because the words on the first list are strong associates of what we call the critical lures, which are cold and sleep here, people's memories for these words are, if you like, activated by seeing, hearing, and hearing the words on the first list. So when people are asked if they'd seen the critical lures, they generally agree that they did actually see them in the first list, even though they hadn't. And what can we conclude for that? Well, memory is associative. Similarly, memories can be confused with it quite easily, or biased by past experience. Certainly, you could ask Nathan how mood can bias memory. It is, or even indeed ask me how it changes as we get older, because there are our little specialities. Memory is also fallible. So arguing about who said what is futile. People may simply have failed to remember that somebody else asked them to do something or said something. And really the lesson from this is we should all be kinder to each other. Okay, thanks very, very much for that. And I hope that's a little bit of illumination onto what we do when there's nobody else around. And I'll hand back to Chloe now to just leave the last little bit of the open day. Thanks very much. We're all very, very much looking forward to seeing everybody as we get back to some kind of normality.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Nathan. And thank you all of our psychology team that have been working hard to answer all of your questions. And a massive thank you first and foremost to all of you for joining us today. The open day isn't over. There is lots more content that you're able to access. You can visit our open day page where you can chat with us about admissions. You can chat with us about various different subjects, and we will be here throughout the rest of the open day to be able to support you and answer any other questions that you might have. Head back over to our main open day page where you can find links to join our Pubble chats to find out more about careers and placements, admissions, student life, the student union. There is a whole load of content that we have ready prepared for you today. Thank you all ever so much for watching, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in the future. Thank you very much, everyone.